It is a project for a class, but I never really thought of it like that.
What it is, it's giving the students an opportunity to compose music, to express the emotions that we're seeing in these silent films.
Hey, I'm Alberto Bade, I'm the director of the Miami Dade College Orchestra, and I came up with the project of breaking the silence. Breaking the silence is taking a vintage product and recreating a fresh perspective on that product. And that's a great creative exercise. And to use this on students really forces them to dig very deeply and find something in them that they didn't know might have been there.
And so they really had to use their creative minds to create this music that would further the story, that would fit the characters, and also that would, convey a sense of emotion as the film took place.
The purpose of the soundtrack, if you will, for silent films served twofold. One was to provide entertainment and to enhance the action that was going on screen because you didn't have dialogues. But also the music that accompanied these silent films were used to drown out the sound of the projector. And it was very distracting for the audience. So the music kind of covered up the sound.
Well, the choosing of the films was completely organic. At first, I just instinctively said, all right, students, you can choose your own silent film. Go watch silent films, and then come back with some ideas of what you want to compose.
We were basically told, find a silent film before a certain year, so that way it's non-copyright, and you choose one that you feel like you can say something about. It's like, all right, I'm going to do Charlie Chaplin. This is what I'm going to do, because this is a character that I know more than anyone else, right?
As luck would have it, Charlie Chaplin was first in line, and I mean, how can you say silent films without saying the name Charlie Chaplin?
Now, Charlie Chaplin was somewhat of a genius, of course, comically and physically, but also a musical genius. His father used to play music in the bars and taverns in England, and Chaplin himself was a violinist. And to the day he died, he continually practiced and played the violin.
So basically what the film is about Charlie Chaplin, and for whatever reason he decides he's going to enter this boxing match to win a money prize. And he goes in, he's training, you see side by sides with him and his opponent, and they're training, and his opponent's, practicing, blah, blah, blah. Charlie Chaplin's sitting there, he's petting a dog, he's doing whatever, he's being Chaplin. And when he gets in the rink, it's like he doesn't fight in a way that a boxer or a fighter would fight. He fights in a very Charlie Chaplin way. But because it's Charlie Chaplin, it works. Yeah, it was absolutely incredible. You know, you sit there for the past year and you compose this piece on computer software, and then you go in and you hear it being recorded, being performed in real life by real musicians instead of just the computer software. And it's like, wow, this is 100 times better.
We're done with that one.
Right in the beginning, I believe it was the 1890s when silent film started, it was pretty quick to notice that music was necessary.
The principal instruments of these soundtracks would be an organist. That would be the number one. These movie houses had an organ. A lot of them were old churches, or they were churches used for projecting these films. The other was published works, music that was already published, usually classical, that they matched to the action that was done.
And then finally, after enough time, by the early 20th century, they finally composed the first original score. And that first original score actually came from a French movie written by a very famous classical composer, Camille Saint-Saëns. And the movie was The Assassination of the Duke of Guise. And this was the first official film score, and that was written in 1907. For what we know, that's the very, very first time that music was presented in this grand scale with an actual soundtrack. Next in line was the film Farewell, and it was composed by Deborah Castro. Now, this film is a typical love story, and really all it is a dialogue between two people.
It's something that I picked. It was free liberty for anyone to choose whatever project you wanted to do and how you wanted to compose it. So for me, I wanted to choose something more of a romantic sense. I wanted to choose, you know, everyone hears about all the comedies, everyone hears about all the horrors, you know, all the silent films that like have produced and have made it. But there's also the other aspect, which is the romance, the sad parts, but the also happy parts that people see in the movies that I feel really should also be, you know, brought up to topic.
question. Is there a reason why they R-code that instead of pits at the end? But I heard them go around.
No, they did bits. The actual instruments did.
I heard.
I found it very inspiring to see the courage that these students had to actually take on this task and really see it through. After the excitement of actually being in the project, kind of went away, they still followed through and they still took every step necessary to see the project be complete. And it's so much work.
But the people didn't pay attention to the music. They paid attention to what was happening on screen, because music has been around for hundreds of years prior to the invention of film. When film came, people were just mesmerized by the fact that we were recording movement, that we were able to create these motion pictures and project them for everyone to share. So the music was kind of a side note. People really didn't pay much attention to it, other than the fact that it added to the excitement of the film.
The Unchastened Woman was a film that I knew nothing about. My student found it. Julia just ran into it.
Second part.
The 12/8?
When she gets up from...
I was looking for something emotional that can touch me so I can tell a story and express feelings through music.
Which is jealousy, love, ecstasy, and your dreams and your ideas of what love is.
That's why I picked this movie, particularly this emotional scene. I just wanted to express feelings that feel people when loved one cheated on them.
All right, so that one's not so bad. That little dun 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 dun, that's the only.
D.W. Griffith's Intolerance, 1916, was really his saving grace of a film that he made prior, Birth of a Nation, in 1915, which was received by the censors with very unfavorable results.
It's a terribly racist film, and it's essentially, sadly, we have to mention it because it was the first American soundtrack that was ever written. And Birth of a Nation was a racist movie, many people know. It was basically the world viewed from the eyes of the Ku Klux Klan.
The film Intolerance is 4 stories interwoven, one of the stories dating back to biblical times all the way up to modern times, or 1916 when the film was released, about a woman whose husband is on trial and she's pleading for the courts to spare his life. It shows man's inhumanity to man and what we need to recognize and see in ourselves to treat each other with more respect and dignity, which of course goes against what Birth of a Nation was showing in that film. So this was very important. The soundtrack was epic.
So for the film Intolerance, it's a way larger movie, and we only used a small segment of this movie, which is the Babylonian scene. And that's the part that we decided to score.
So I stumbled upon Intolerance when I was looking for a video for this project, and I knew 15 seconds in that it was the one I wanted to make a song for.
And it's Intolerance, but I think it has what the music is saying.
The setting for it was in the Middle East. That would cause me to look into Eastern music.
I told Sergio, try to think outside of the box. And that meant maybe instrumentation changes, maybe doing something a little unorthodox with drums, maybe not just 1 drum set, maybe not just 2, maybe 3.
Well, it started with a really simple beat, but we knew that it just needed more energy, and the drums was definitely going to bring that out. From when I saw those images, not only did I know that I would have to approach it with a different style of music, but I knew I wanted to create this theme song for it to really like put the spectator in there. And that was my whole goal for this composition. It was beautiful. The software definitely doesn't compare to what real instruments sound like, especially when someone puts their emotion behind it. And I was happy to see my creation come to life.
It It was a blessing to see musicians play my piece for the first time. It's not the same when you're at home and being able to compose by yourself or asking people's opinions until you see the final product and you really say, wow, I did that. I was the inventor behind that film. I was the person that truly put the music people just needed to see in order to understand why the silent film is so important.
There's knowledge and then there's understanding. You can know how a song sounds, you can know how to play it, you know, all that, but then there's understanding. And it's, oh, I love these pieces, I love the way it sounds. And then I hear my own piece, and I'm like, oh, I like the way that sounds, but I also know these little flourishes that I put in there, that I know these little nuances, I know what it was like to try to come up with that phrase. And it's completely, it gives me a whole new respect.
I decided to become a composer when I was 15. And I've been imagining how my music been played by musicians and how I record interviews, and I've been imagining this all this time, you know?
Oh yeah, I learned a lot. That was my goal for this class. Of course I wanted to create an awesome composition, but my main goal was to learn, to grow from this.
As we progressed through the project, it got a little bit more progressive, it became a little bit more eccentric, and my goal was to think outside of the box. And the whole purpose of this project is to take something that is vintage and give it a modern touch and ultimately create something totally new. So take the vintage, dress it up modern, and have a completely new product. And that was the goal.
So I worked really closely with Barry Gordon. He really worked with us to help us to select some of the films that we were going to compile together.
Breaking the Silence, I acted as executive producer, helped put the program together. I also did some assistance with the editing for the montage that appears at the end of the program.
We have had almost half a century of electronic music. We wanted to combine all these electronic sounds with the traditional symphony orchestra. So what happens when you combine these two worlds? Well, you come up with a very unique experience, and much more unique when you combine it with a montage of silent film's most popular pieces. So that's what this last piece is, and this last piece is entitled Breaking the Silence.